5:15 on the dot. Let's get started, folks. Welcome to my lovely presentation. Today we're going to be talking about a case study on fueling a transportation site with data and APIs. So I see this lovely picture in the background. Pretty sweet. So just a little about me. My name is Jordan Thompson. I am a technical lead web developer at a company called Digital Echidna. We're located in London, Ontario, Canada. We have about 70, 80 employees, and we make some pretty cool stuff. Yeah. Hello from Canada, from the Great North. And if you ever see me on the Drupal.org, my username is Nord102. You might see me in the Kinship channels. Where is everybody from, by the way? We got some fellow Canadians? I know, like, I got my fellow Echidnas. Seattle, nice. Italy, ooh, we got some, like, across the ponds. I dig it, I dig it. Switzerland, heck yeah. Australia, home of the Echidna, shout out. If we had our little Echidna slushie, or plushies, I could throw them, but like you can't really throw them on virtual. Doesn't really work. We have some pretty sweet plush though. So welcome from all over. I appreciate throw them at the camera. I really appreciate anyone who's either staying up late or waking up way too early. So perfect. Okay, let's get this started, folks. Yeah, next year we'll have plushies for sure. Okay, so this is a case study on Santa Clara Valley Transportation Authority. And what they are, they're an independent local special district. They're in the Santa Clara County, so like Silicon Valley, if you've ever heard of Silicon Valley, maybe you have. And their slogan is solutions that move you. So they're really focused on public transit, paratransit. They have a BART, which is like the Bay Area rail transit, like light rail transit. So that really connects the whole Bay Area in transit terms. And they're much more than just transit. They're working on funding and planning and different projects and programs. So it's not just when you hear transit authority, it's not just like, oh, they do buses. It's like the whole thing, like all the transit stuff, like land and construction and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, and then there's their shout out their little logo right there. So really, we're kind of diving into what they had. So this was a site redesign, and you can kind of see here that this is their homepage, and it's a little dated, it's a little busy, right? You got a lot of text on the screen, you got a lot of menus, like a lot of functionality that's kind of just like packed in there all over the place, right? So really our goal for this was that they wanted to increase user satisfaction and usage. They wanted a mobile first and responsive website, right? They wanted to use an open source platform, and they wanted to leverage transit industry standards. So that was like the 4 key factors for them, right? So, they were previously using Salesforce for their website. Some of their technologies on there were maybe, a little old. Maybe like mobile wasn't really something that was on their mind last time they did their redesign. So, and they really wanted people to be excited to go to their website, to actually use their website, to get their data, and to really enjoy that experience. So that's like kind of the key pieces. And yeah, Salesforce, I'm not going to talk smack on Salesforce, but I think Drupal's a much better choice. Let's just leave it at that. So this is what we kind of ended up with. So you can see a much cleaner user interface. This is the home page. You know, we took some of that functionality, kind of made it more key on the home page. You'll see here that we have like this kind of functional modal in the middle here. And what it does, and we'll kind of dive into some of the components in here later, but what this kind of serves is that users can come to the website, they can look up their transit, their bus times in real time, so they can say, you know, when is my bus coming? I'm at the stop. Is it going to come in like 5-10 minutes? And if they want to plan a trip, so, you know, if they want to go point A to point B, show me how to get there, show me, you know, what buses to take, and, you know, do some comparison on there. And then also you can link me to some schedules so that I can figure out, you know, if I want to go old school and look at the schedule and see when my bus should be coming or not. And, you know, we cleaned up some of the quick links we have here. So, you know, we've simplified the homepage quite a bit, and really have these call to actions kind of pop. And there's some more down below of like featured blogs and that kind of stuff, but it really is more of a modern look, very, very much a full screen, like look, like a wide look. So yeah, I think this is much cleaner. So we'll kind of dive into really the main meat and potatoes of what it means to fuel a transit website, at least this transit website for sure. So GTFS, and you ask yourself, what does that mean? Well, let me tell you. It stands for General Transit Feeds Specification. Now say that 10 times fast. So what that really means, because that almost doesn't even tell you anything, it really, it's a data specification that allows public transit agencies to publish their data in a format that can be consumed by others. So like Google will consume this kind of data, and other kind of travel or transit apps and that kind of stuff. So anything that knows, like, how do you know what the bus times are? They're getting it from the transit authority who's generating them to then be used by others, right? So on the right, you'll see that I have a diagram, and this is the diagram that represents all of the different files associated with GTFS. So you can see there's quite a bit. There's about 10 or so, and they have different relationships with each other. So, you know, there's routes, and then each route has so many trips during a day, and each trip has stop times and stops and fares, and there's even a trip shape, so they know, you know, what the shape looks like when you go to draw it on a map. And like if it's running on a Monday or a Saturday, or if it runs northbound, westbound, like we're getting pretty complex. And you think to yourself, you know, buses shouldn't be that, or transit shouldn't be that complicated. Well, there's a lot of information, let me tell you. So you can kind of see really the first hurdle is figuring out this structure, right? So what we really wanted to do is we wanted to take this information that they were creating for other vendors and say, maybe we should use it ourselves to fuel the website, because, you know, it's our data. Why not use our own data to fuel our website, quite literally, right? So figuring out the structure and how all these files work together really was the first hurdle I found. And we'll kind of dive into kind of some iterations, some steps that we have to go through to really take this kind of structure, these lone 10 files, and kind of make them work with what we need them to do. So part one. So really what we do is that we read in and chunk the files into manageable portions, right? So we're grabbing all that data, and let me tell you too, that if you're thinking, oh, is this big data or small data or medium data? I can tell you now that for example, that stop times file has about 500,000 rows of stop times, because you got to think, if a bus goes around or makes like so many laps of the same route every day, there's a stop time for each of those stops. It just gets pretty crazy. So like it just kind of, you know, keeps going big and big and big. Yeah, it gets big. So we had to kind of make them manageable too, right? And then we wanted to map them. So the other thing with GTFS is it uses lots of like ones and zeros to determine like directions, for example. and the different kind of mapping. So we had to make these, we had to kind of take that data and massage it to make it friendlier, so that we could, either feed it into Drupal, or we could feed it into a database table. And then when we go to feed it into Drupal, we actually know what one means versus, maybe instead of, so after we map like 0 and 1 to like northbound, southbound, we're really, now we know what that means. We don't have to guess every time we read that data. What does 1 mean again? We know. In this term, in this case right now, we have the proper direction or anything like that. So really that's the second process. And then we go to import. So really what we did is we took all those 10 files, and after we ingested and mapped them, right? So we massaged that data, we just directly import them into database tables, or even some stored notes. So we do have, so there was a route table. So that one actually directly imported to a content type called route, whereas all the other data is really the supporting data for a route, right? So the trips for a route, the stop times for the trips for the route, et cetera, et cetera. So really the route is kind of your main piece. So that's why it gets the node or the content, and everything else kind of gets their database tables. So you're thinking, okay, so if I have all these database tables, like how am I supposed to get all that data onto my route page? So really part 2 is we want to query, right? So we want to get that information. I'm sorry, I guess we start with some iteration first. So we're thinking, okay, how do I get all that data? Okay, so we need to connect all those tables. Every time we want some route information, right? Because the data is kind of dispersed across all those files. So, every time we land on a route page, do we need to query 10 different database tables, especially with that one that's 500,000 rows? That's pretty heavy, right? That's like not performant whatsoever, right? So you got to think, okay, how do I get around that? How do I make this, easy on the system so that when someone loads a route page, they're not going to have to wait or have their page crash if they actually want to get the route data. So what we did is we started querying those tables, and then it's kind of a mix between this 2.1 query and the refine. So we're querying the tables so that we're getting the data that we want to, and then we're kind of, I think we make right now about 10 queries throughout the table. So we're kind of just collecting data and collecting more data and structuring it so that, when we go to read it in, we're not guessing what the structure is or making all these joins of tables. We know that it's structured the way we want, and then we're going to read it in very easy. So we're querying all those imported data to kind of make this more refined, structured query data that we're then taking and putting them back into database tables, but in more of a refined state. So you got to think, if I was going for a route, as opposed to querying across 10 tables, I query one table, and it gives me all of my information I need in a nice structured way. I don't have to do these crazy joins. I don't have to do anything that's non-performant. I'm just loading one line of serialized data that I can then unserialize and then load and use to load my page, right? So that was kind of the key step, is really, how do I get this on my route page without, blowing my performance budget, really, and the page load time. And then we did it. So as I said, we did the insert. So something else I'll note as well is kind of going back to importing these. It was really important that we did some iteration on that as well. So maybe I'll just skip back to part 1. It was really important so that when we were to ingest these files, because they're so large, trying to chunk them into more manageable chunks, we did, first we were doing, like single line at a time we were trying to import, right? And then we said, okay, this import's taking about, an hour or 2. That's a little unnecessary. Then we turn those chunks into chunks of 1,000. And now that import that took maybe an hour or two, or even more. I think it took quite a long time in the early days. This whole process, even part 3 that you haven't seen yet, takes about 5 minutes. It just runs, gets all that data, chunks it in, throws it in, massages it, imports it, refines it, done. So it's quick, it's reliable, and it's pretty performant. So let's get to part 3, and I might have accidentally just skipped the slide. No, I didn't. Good. Oh, I did. Let's go back. Mind the technical difficulties. There we go. So part 3. So we're getting this information on the page now, and I'll show you the visual in a second. But then we kind of ran into some issues. So we're trying to get some map data, and we only have those 10 files, right? But really, we're trying to make our route information as accurate as possible. So what we ended up doing is we kind of added these helper files. So we had data. The client could provide us this data that wasn't explicitly included in the GTFS files that could help us kind of augment and make sure that data was true and from a true source. So for example, when we're thinking, a route, like a bus route, for example, serves, maybe 60 different stops throughout a week. But knowing which those 60 were, there was no definite list in that GTFS, those GTFS files. We were kind of guessing and trying to make this list based on assumptions that we had them all, and all of these stops served, say southbound or northbound, for example. So that wasn't really the best. We were playing that guessing game. We were making, big assumptions. So then we were like, okay, let's get this master stop list, which literally gives us, this is the route, these are all the stops it serves, northbound, southbound, that. It was a defined, true list of that's the source of truth right there. That's the source. And then we even have some functionality on the site that allows you to see kind of the current and the upcoming route information. So, if the route's going to change next month because maybe, it's being rerouted because there's construction or something like that, it might change. And we need to know when those routes change and how to handle that. Even some routes even merge to other routes. So we had this kind of route mapping file that said, okay, this route maybe is merging into another route. So when I go to upcoming for this route, it should actually link me to another route page. It shouldn't, display more information on this page, because it's now, say, a route is turning into, like, say even 2 routes are merging into one, they'd want to link to that other. So that was super important as well, and that kind of took some iteration, that process to kind of get everything to a true source. And it's an iterative process. I'm not saying that this whole thing just kind of worked out of the box, right? This really kind of brings home the message that iteration is key. And you might not know all the information from day one. We wouldn't have known that we needed those extra files to kind of really boost what we can provide. But we live, we learn, we get feedback from people who know more about the data. We get feedback from actual customers that are riding the buses, for example. And then they say, oh, that looks kind of wonky. Let's maybe kind of tweak that or try to get some better information there. And then we work on it. So really the next step, after we've kind of defined all of the structure for those files and really the data, we want to automate it, right? So before, I would have to run that every, it would take only about 5 minutes to run, but I'd still have to run it manually. So now we have that, we have kind of a 2-step process. We can download GTFS files from a URL that the client provides, and that's the URL that, say, Google downloads from and other services download from. So it's really that they're saying, here you go, here's my transit information. So we can download that, and then we can take that, and on a daily schedule, we can, run updates. So we don't have to worry about running it ourselves. It'll just run by itself. And even when, There's a situation where, the upcoming schedule is now should be the current schedule, right? So, today is the day where all the route schedules switch. Then that just happens automatically. It says, okay, I have the upcoming information. I know today is the day. Switch it over, run the import. We're good to go. And I think, when you talk about automation, obviously you need to talk about logging, because logging is super important. You need to make sure that this automation that's just, off running things that's really important to your website is actually working the way you expect. So, we're logging all the different steps that I kind of talked about here, all the different steps at each different point, kind of going through and making sure that everything's working as expected. And then even we have some notification email sending in case anything goes awry. So in the case where something does kind of go wrong or unexpected, we can kind of jump on it quicker, or quickly, rather. So let's talk about, so I'll show you what they had. So this is what they had from before. So you see how we have our tabs on the top here. So this is for a Route 22, right? We got our tabs on the top for each of the directions and the direction day, kind of day of service combination. And we got our tables. Now, just picture this. These tables are manually entered. They had to manually enter these tables. And if anytime there was a change or a tweak or like a spelling mistake, they had to go in and edit these. So you can picture 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of these tables. That's only for one route, right? So you think that like there's about 100 routes, and there you go. That's like a lot of manual work that for data that you already have. So really, this is the after. So I'll still point out that, obviously we have a nice cleaner user interface. We still kept with the tabs because that's something that users really liked and we got really good feedback on it. But that route table down there is all coming from that GTES information that we're importing and refining. So anytime there's an update, we run the import again. We get the new files, we run the import. We don't have to do any manual changes. We don't have to worry about, any spelling mistakes or maybe the time's in the wrong spot. Like, it just works. So we load up Route 22, I get all of my information from my database. And it's just like a really clean system, right? So as I said before, if you're generating your own route data, why not use it to fuel your own website? So we're using it here and it worked really well. So as I said, that whole table down here is all fueled by GTES information. So none of that's saved on the node or anything. It does a lookup, say, give me my information for my route, and it prints it to the screen. So even generating what tabs are there is also from that information, because we know that this, for example, this specific route serves eastbound, westbound, and then does weekday, Saturday, Sunday. If it didn't serve Sunday, Sunday wouldn't be there, right? So just for an example. Something else I'll also note here is that if you'll see, there's a tiny button here that says PDF. So we're actually we generate PDFs based on these route tables, so that someone can say, like, download that schedule so they can take with them or print it off, right? So similar to how they have little pamphlets on the bus, but that PDF is getting the information from this generated table. So we don't have to make PDFs ourselves either. We're using the information as much as we can because we have it and we can use it. So it's those PDFs are generated from this table, and the PDF would look like a nice structured table, right? So it just works. Why upload your own PDFs when you have the information? So you have to harness it, right? So now we're getting into some other stuff, right? So APIs and endpoints. So really kind of expanding on what we're using on the site, and kind of really hitting hard on what the clients need and how we can use that route data, but also get it supplemented by some APIs and some different endpoints that it really kind of brings the whole thing together. So we did harness the Maps JavaScript API. So we're showing, in this example, we're showing bus stations that we're getting, and those stations are actually also coming from the GTES. So I guess from before, when I said the route is the only thing that's a content type, stations are also a content type. They're just like less cool because the routes have more information. But stations are also generated as well. And because we have that information, we know what stops are a station, we know what routes are connected to that. So all that kind of data, we can still get in and import to the system, right? So there's no manual job there. So something else that we leveraged as well is the direction API. So Google's direction API. So we have some functionality on the website that allows you to kind of plan your trip, right? So here I've just kind of laid out just kind of some of the format of the options that you could have when using the direction API. And I'll note too that, it's a bit of a learning curve to kind of figure out the best ways to use some of these APIs and that. So, we're getting it in JSON. We're giving it an origin and destination API key, but we can also specify like mode of transportation, what in our arrival time or departure time. We can even bias it to a specific region. So, if I want to go to, I can't think of a city that exists in two different places, but if I wanted to go to a specific city, I don't want to get results for a city that's nowhere near my area, right? So these guys are located in the Valley in California, in San Jose. So we really bias that area so that, you're only getting information from that radius. So you really don't need results from all over the globe. You just need results for your area. And that's something that's really neat, I think, that you can do with the direction API. So just an example here. That's kind of what the Google API or the directions API key calls out for. And you'll notice that I have my secret API key in there too, so that you don't steal my key. So yeah, that's pretty cool. And you'll see it kind of in action right here. So what we did is we're calling that direction API, we're getting those results, we're popping them into those results on the left here. So these are expandable. It'll give you each step of the way, which I think is really neat. So, it'll say, turn right, turn left, do this, do that. And then we can actually draw them on the map as well. So we can physically just display these and even, display like this is route 1, this is route 2. And then, the users can kind of see which one they like better. Maybe they want this one because it goes through a specific area, like this one 7 hours versus 8 hours, for example. So, you can leave that up to the user, but you're giving them those results, which I think is pretty cool. So I'd recommend trying that out on vta.org if you want to kind of take a look. And even anything I've mentioned here. So we also did use the Places API, right? So I guess this is more so when I was talking about making sure that you're using the right cities. So really you can specify like a location, a radius, and a strict bound. So this is really when you say, I want locations that are only in, say, the country like US, right? And my middle location is here with a radius of like 80,000 meters. And I want it to be strict. So only give me results if they're in my radius. So I think that's pretty cool. Because before we had noticed too on their previous kind of functionality that was similar to this is that you might get a city that's nowhere near where you're trying to search. So this makes it a lot more user-friendly. So you can see here, we have our autocomplete. So if you're searching, like, say, Santa Clara, it's going to give you some options, which is pretty cool. And you can even specify, how many, with our API call, we limited it so that, they had to type so many characters before we even tried doing an autocomplete just to note, if you're going to use the Places API, it costs so much money per like autocomplete. So just try to, like, if you can get around some corners, if you type at least 3 characters, at least then, it's worthwhile with using Google Places. So something else that we used as well is we have a real-time feed. So we're getting real-time stop results from this like Swiftly transit time feed. So users can get an accurate estimation of when their bus is going to arrive. So we have our GTES data, right? So that, this bus is supposed to be at the stop by like 10:30. But, maybe it's running early, maybe it's running late. The Swiftly transit time data, we actually say, okay, if there's a Swiftly transit time update for that, we'll use that instead. But having GTES as a fallback, right? So maybe it is running early, we're going to use that instead. So really giving our users accurate data so that they know where their bus is. They can't just assume that it's always going to follow the GTES perfect schedule, because, traffic, as we were talking about before, there's always traffic. Or, maybe there's no one on a certain bus route, so maybe the bus is just running really early that day. Who knows? So we're harnessing this API, and we're really using what's available in the transit world to really help us deliver the best content. And something else that we use as well is there's a company called MECATRAN that allows for publishing transit alerts. So kind of similar to how they publish their GTES data, they publish transit alerts so that other systems can kind of pick up on them, right? So, if a bus is down or a bus has been rerouted, or, maybe it's like the route has been canceled, for example, COVID-19 wiped out a lot of transit, right? Because no one's going to ride the bus when they can't really go outside. But these transit alerts, they're published on a feed, we're reading them in, and we display them on the website. So again, we're not making that data on the website. There's no duplication effort. They post it in one spot for everybody, all their vendors, and then we're grabbing that, we're importing it, and we're showing it to users. So it really kind of hits home that you're using as much information without duplication of effort. Because if they're already publishing it somewhere, why not use that data, right? That's where it kind of hits home to. And yeah, so that's kind of the jam. I'm gonna open up for questions or comments. And I know that there's been some questions and some good discussion in the chat, talking about PDFs and that kind of stuff. Data with search. Oh, so yeah, we are using search, Solar Search on the website. Because all that, like technically they're not searching for like bus times and stuff. So really they're searching just for the route. And then when you get to the route, they're going to see all that GTES information structured in that table format. Let's see. I mean, to also answer the question too, how large is the data set? I mean, it wasn't like, I was told that I can't call it a big data set, because big data is like probably way bigger than this data. But it's a substantial amount of data, I would say. Like, as I said, the one file is 500,000 lines. Granted, yeah, it's more of like a medium, right? Like that's the biggest one. The other ones are smaller for sure. Like there's a file that only has maybe 100 lines. Like that's it. So it's varying, like as it kind of scales up, right? Data is not necessarily constantly growing because they only have so many buses and so many routes. So it's pretty stable. Like, new buses and new routes don't happen every day. Like I think like even them canceling buses happens once in a blue moon, right? Is your GTES data stored in Drupal? It's stored in the database in just like flat database tables. So then, but when I go to refine that data, so like I import it into flat tables. So like, they're like kind of big, but they're still just database tables that I'm then querying from and then refining that data. So I refine that data, I put it all into like a nice structure, and then I put that into a different table. So it's a structured, so I serialize it so that I have like, say my route ID is my key, like my unique identifier. So I'm like, okay, go find me the row for route 22. And then it gives me that serialized data. I unserialize it and shove it in the table. So it's the same SQL. Yes, it's the same database as the Drupal site. It's really like not that much data. I mean, other than the one larger table, everything else is like not too bad. Is the data in, say, Excel? What do you mean by that? Like, oh, like how do I get the data? So the data comes in like CSVs, like pretty large CSVs. Oh yeah, sorry, I'm trying to answer your question. So is the GTF import module implemented as a Drupal module? It is not. I don't know. It maybe could be, because I mean GTFS is a standard, right? So it's not saying that it couldn't be a module, but I guess there's different business cases. It also depends on the way that certain transit authorities maybe structure their GTFS. So there's a little bit of like leeway with some of the ways that they structure it. I know that, like I said, we've added those helper files, for example, which everyone might not have. But I think like overall, sure. But there is some documentation out there. I mean, I think as a base, I could probably make one as a base. Yeah, there's a link that someone posted for the standard, so you could look at that. But yeah, I think as a base, you could probably make a module out of it. I just don't know how useful it would be to like the grand scheme, but happy to always talk about GTFS for sure. Who generates the GTFS? That is from the client. So the client has all that data in like another system, and then they generate these files. So it's almost like we're like refining the refined files. Do I locally cache? Oh, so just reading another question. Do I locally cache into the API results for commonly requested searches? I don't. I mean, you probably could, but most of it, like those API results are all just coming from Google. So, and like, that part of the site isn't necessarily, I wouldn't say it's not the most used part of the website, but really the routes is really kind of the key element. So I mean, we could maybe cache some of that stuff, but I don't know like how much you would save from that. How often does the client update GTES? It depends. Like right now, it's been pretty often, just because like crazy times. Sometimes buses are there, and sometimes buses are not running. But I think like on a normal, quote unquote, normal schedule, it's about like every quarter, so like a couple times a year at most. Yeah, so we'd sync every time the client updates. So I said, so they'll post their GTFS at a URL, and then we grab that, and then we can update it. So it's auto sync, but there's also a manual option too. There's even a manual option for them to upload their files like directly to the site too. So it's really like if they don't have time to put it through all the correct channels to put it at that URL to do an update, they can just quickly do it on the site, and then maybe that update will be in their files maybe by midnight or something like that. So they have kind of both options there. We created an admin interface for them to manually run it if they need to, and manually upload the files. Yeah, it's kind of like a hot fix for them if they need it. So it's really it's useful for them, and then like that's also where they can see the log. So yeah, it depends. Like we're just making it as flexible as possible because it's always hard to be totally hands off something, especially if you need something fixed right now. So yeah, it's been quite a work in progress for sure. Sometimes we find bugs and then we fix them, or someone notices something, and we've gone through iterations and iterations of even design that then affects the build. But like right now, it's in a really good state. So awesome. Thanks for tuning in, Dries. Do you import some of these data as Drupal entities, routes or bus stop versus custom tables? The only things that are imported as like content are routes and stations. Everything else is just imported straight up table because we don't need them to live as entities or anything like that. So because they really just need to feed in, like I just need the data. I don't need them to like be an entity. It's too heavy as an entity. Oh, yeah. So I guess we're slowly running out of time, but yeah, thank you for everyone for listening. Feel free to please message me or connect with me later if you have any questions, and also please fill out the survey link. There's a pinned link at the top. You can give some feedback on how much you love this presentation, and yeah, I'm happy to talk transit anytime. Transit's pretty sweet. I mean, I'm in the world now, so yeah. Oh, link slides. Send me a message if you want my slides. I will link you the slides. I don't have a link like handy like right at the moment, but I got you. And yeah, enjoy DrupalCon. This wonderful world of online. No Sandlot slides, no. I'm happy everybody enjoyed it. It's good. I like sharing experiences and case studies and stuff. It's pretty cool. Tom Arnold. That email, is that for who are you trying to email? You trying to email me? My email this is my email. I guess I'll just share it in here. Boop, boop, boop. Boom. That's my email. Yeah, I think it's neat to kind of see what other transit agencies are doing, because you want to see what the standard is or what other people are doing, but you also want to innovate a bit, right? So there's a balance. You got to say what are they doing real well, and why am I not doing that already? But then you can see stuff that they're not doing well, and you'd be like, maybe we shouldn't do that. So there's a balance for sure. I'll definitely say that we did some research for sure when we were designing the site and looking at different kind of functionalities and stuff. Implemented any of these schema org tags on your schedule data? What do you mean? What do you mean by that? Schema org tags? Yeah, I mean, to also just to add on to my point, yeah, like you always should just check out what everyone else is doing, because if other people are popular, they're clearly popular for reasons. I may have to get back to you on that, John. I'll have to take a look see. Feel free to send me a message. Yeah, like I think if people, as I said, if people are doing some standard stuff in the world, like see what's trending, see what else like all the other cool kids are doing. Oh yeah, you can find our the digital echidna booth in the exhibit hall, and you can get a pretty sweet ebook. So that's pretty cool. And there's a game. There's a hockey game, as Martin mentioned. You can win some prizes if you get a high score. So yeah, any other questions? I don't know if I'm supposed to like leave because it's like 6 o'clock, or if we're just hanging out. Oh, they'll cut me off. Oh, okay. Well, as I said, if you guys feel free to message me on here, if you want to chat or anything, happy to chat. Yeah, or even yeah, email Christine or anybody, or come to the booth. Happy to talk. We're pretty cool people. They haven't cut me off yet. I wonder if the next sessions don't start till like 6:15. There's still like 50 people here. So we have lots of time. We have so much time to chat. Maybe I can try to get my slides. That'd be good, eh? Yeah, sounds good, man. I mean, yeah, like who doesn't want to talk transit? Transit's just, it's one of those kind of different style industries, because you got your higher ed, you got your hospitals, or like your healthcare, but transit, why not transit? Sure. Send me a message, Todd. Shoot me a message. Chat. We can chat. I know things. Is there any other questions or anything? Still got like 50 people in here. It makes me excited. You guys are just hanging around. Well, I'll hang out for like another 10 minutes. If anyone wants to chit chat. I guess I should start reading my messages though too. Might be good. Told people to message me and I need to respond. Yeah, that's it. Feel free, send me a message, send me an email, anything, come to the booth, ask for me, ask for anybody. We're all cool. Small pamphlet. I like small pamphlets. And just for anyone else who didn't catch my email is this boy right here. Okie doke. Still got time. I'm just hanging out. I need to like get another window open. There we go. Yeah, I have like 7 messages that I need to get to. Not to brag or anything. People want to talk to me. And I'll need to get slides. Okay, I'm going to sign off. Said, feel free to message me or find me around. I'm around. You'll see me. Okay, I'll catch 32 of you later.